Wow, what an introduction. My name is Michelle and I'm an alcoholic. And my sobriety date is December 13th, 2020, and my home group is the Hollister group. And I'm honored to be here. Thanks, Benji, for asking me. I've had a whole month to kind of calm the nerves, but we'll see what happens. I decided I'm not going to write anything down because it tends to be a crutch for me, so I just kind of talk and we'll just see where it goes. I've prayed enough to God today that He's going to lead what I say anyway, so hopefully someone will hear something that could help them. But I'm just going to lean on the old-fashioned, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And for me, I grew up in a divorced household, and my mom and dad separated and divorced when I was probably about 4 or 5. My mom remarried shortly after that, and she's currently still married to that man. So they've been together almost 50 years, so he was my dad. And they drank on occasion. They didn't really have a whole lot of alcohol in the house unless they were intending on, drinking a few. And when I say a few, I really do mean a few. They never really alcoholically drank in my mind. But my mom came from a very alcoholic home. My grandfather and my grandmother both died a very ugly alcoholic death. My dad's dad was also a very mean drunk, but I was only with him every other weekend, so I didn't get to see it all the time. And however, I have aunts and uncles. It's weird because none of the women in my family drank. But my uncles, however, taught me exactly how I should do it. And so that's kind of the way my life went. It always seemed like there was something off with me, and I learned it at a very young age. It's my grandparents were abusive people. They were not kind, and it never failed my mother. I don't know if she thought she was going to fix them or what she thought, but she always wanted to be there. And I'm like, God, do we have to go over there again? We know what they're going to be doing. They're just drinking and smoking. I mean, there was a film of yellow on their living room walls that will probably, they'd have to demolish the house to get rid of it. But so when we would go over for holidays, it was just a drunk fest. My mom's brother was the same way. My mom's sister was the same way. That's all it was. There was no really family oriented. That's just what they did. It was kegs there and alcoholic bottles everywhere, and that's how they did their family gatherings. My dad's family, because my aunts didn't drink, they were the ones that were trying to form some sort of stability in our family. And that side of the family, we grew up pretty close. My cousins and all of us, there were a lot of us. My dad was one of 7, and there were a lot of kids. So we had a great get-togethers, Easter egg hunts, the whole thing. And to me, life was normal there. When I started growing up into junior high and running with some people that I thought they were nice, and my parents never liked anybody I ever hung out with, and I couldn't understand why till I got a little older. But I got into junior high and found these little teeny white pills that made me feel like a different person. I could take those and get by through the whole day and not have to worry about what anybody thought. I didn't have to worry about being shy because my mouth chattered a lot. And so I was able to get through my junior high years by everybody loved me because I was the one that found those little white pills, and I was able to help everybody else get through the day too. Wasn't that something to be proud of? But I learned right then, people liked me when I did that. It made me feel different. It made me feel like I was somebody else. It got me out of whatever kind of discomfort I was feeling at that moment. And I started learning that there was going to be a way for me to feel better in my own skin. I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to find that just yet. I know that when I was younger and my grandpa would say, go get me a beer, I'd be like, okay. And he'd say, you didn't drink any of it, did you? Oh, no. Well, it started making me wonder, why is he asking me that? So I started taking a drink of it. Every time I'd go, you're not drinking that, are you? And I finally, one day, I just said, yeah. Yep, I did, Grandpa. And he said, good girl. So I was like, man, this is just, but I was getting the taste, and I thought, what is it about this stuff that just makes them, anyway. So that was kind of where it started for me, was just the little sips, and then as I got into junior high, it was that, and then as I got into high school, I found the teenage parties, and that was where I was able to figure out what alcohol could really do for me. And I never thought I had a problem, and at that point I may or may not have, but I was always able to keep good grades. And I worked, and I did all these things, honor society, and all these things at school that would make people go, oh, look at her, she's so good, she's got it all together. And as long as I did that, I was able to say, I will never be my grandfather or my grandmother as long as I'm still doing the good grades and working and keeping my life together. And so that was kind of how I was able to continue my drinking career and not realize I had a problem. As I got into high school and the drinking, then there was an instance where I went to a party and I got drunker than I would have liked to have admit that I did. And so when I came back to school and everybody was chattering, I thought, oh gosh, I can't have that. The teachers will find out. Holy cow, what will they think of me? So it was always about what other people thought, how I would fit in, all these things that made me lean towards something that would get me out of myself. And so I started even more after school activities, and I was the one in my high school who started our SAD program, because if I started that program, no one would think of me, right? So I did. Now that I look back on it, it's almost comical, because I really thought that I was living the life of an upstanding citizen, but I graduated from high school. I had all of these awards when I graduated, and I decided that the house I was living in, my stepdad, he was a retired Marine, and he ran our household like a retired Marine. And I could not wait to get out of that house. And I started dating somebody in my junior year of high school, and he was a big pothead and a big drunk, and that's what I was looking for. I guess it was, because that's who I married, and I was like, okay, I'm out of here. And I left the house, and that's how I started. But what I didn't pay attention to, and I knew before I married him that he was abusive. And I'd make excuses, and I'd, tell my parents, I fell, that's, I just, stupid stuff. But my mom, the one thing she said to me, my mom was always the kind of person that if I really needed somebody to talk to, you always go to your mom, right? Not my mom. I would go to my mom, and she would immediately change the subject. It did not matter what I went to her with. It wasn't going to amount to anything, because she grew up in an abusive house. She didn't have the ability to help me. She didn't know what to tell me, so she just changed the subject and told me nothing. And I had my dad remarried, and I had a stepmom that's who I went to. If I needed some sort of advice or some sort of guidance or direction, that's who I went to, because she wasn't afraid to say, are you freaking kidding me? What are you thinking? I'm like, I'm not. That's why I'm asking you for help. So I always ended up with my dad and my stepmom. When life got tough, that's where I ended up, because I would call them, and I knew that they would never say to me, you need to straighten your shit up and don't come back here until you do. I knew they were never going to tell me that. And to this day, he will never tell me that. And my dad was always the go-to because he was going to save Michelle every time. And so I decided after I graduated and I had my first daughter, then I divorced my ex-husband, and I went to college. And I thought, look, I'm going to college. I still have it together. But by this time, I really didn't have anything together. The partying was there. It was stay up late, get up early, party, go to, I never had an opportunity in my life where I didn't drink. If it was, and I thought because I only drank on weekends most of the time. And I didn't miss work most of the time. And so I made a whole lot of excuses for myself, even though I knew. And my first sponsor said to me, because I told her, I said, wonder if I'm a real alcoholic. And she said, Michelle, think about what you just said. She said, people who don't already know they have a problem with alcohol, they don't ask am I an alcoholic? If you have to ask that, you already know the answer. And I was like, okay. All right, well, I'll give you that one. But there was always a but. So I graduated from college. Later, I was 27 when I graduated from college. And we're going to get into what happened now, because college, I graduated, and the next week, my life went to hell in a handbasket. I mean, that quick. I graduated, left graduation, went to Florida for a week, and I came home. It was Memorial Day weekend of 1996. And we were at a party, and I was barely drinking. I mean, I was drinking, but it wasn't a lot. And so, when you're involved in alcoholics' lives, fights happen. And so there's Michelle, I'm going to save the day. They're arguing. He left. She's crying. I'm going to save the day, and I go after him. And I had somebody else with me. I was driving someone else's vehicle, and I am coming down a dark road, and I'm more interested in finding my cigarettes, and I hit a person, and I had no idea. I knew when I hit him, but I didn't even see him until he was like in my headlight. And when I hit him, he came up over the top of my car, and I knew from that moment that it was not going to end well. And so I knew I'm not a nurse. No, the lady with me was not a nurse, so I left. And I stopped a little bit up the road, and I ran inside, and I called 911 and told them there was an accident, and told them where it was, and then I went the long way around so that I didn't have to go back by it. And we got back to the party because I needed a drink. And when I got there, I just ran inside. And of course, my daughter was there, and all the family, the people that I drank with in our family. And I went inside and I said, "Give me a drink, lots of them." And then I sat down in a chair, and I'm like just talking to myself and talking to everybody else and trying to explain what happened. And I said, you know what, I can't do this. I cannot live the rest of my life knowing, because I knew when I hit him that man did not make it. And I couldn't live the rest of my life running, wondering what if. So I had them call the police department. And they kept me on the phone till they got there and arrested me in front of my daughter. That was hard. That was really hard. But I had a lot of family also in the police department, and they never put me in a cell. I never knew that I could fit my whole body in a fetal position on a chair, but I promise you I did it that day. The guy kept asking me questions, and were you drunk? And I'm like, I had a few drinks. I'm not drunk. I'm still standing here. I'm not that drunk. He was like, he gets some phone calls, and he's, yes, she's here. And I knew they were talking about me. I knew they were talking about the gentleman. And he got off the phone, and he said, so, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I don't really work. I just got out of college. I'm looking for a job, I'm not. He said, okay, well, your life's going to change a little bit. And he said, that gentleman that you hit has just died. And so at that point, I was like, oh, crap. I had no idea. I'd never been in trouble with the law, which is why I was able to, all those years, say that I'm not an alcoholic. I don't do this. I'm not, drinking every day. I'm not. I was able to justify it all by the fact of what I hadn't done until that day. And I spent the next 9 months drunk every day, because that was my perfect excuse that my life is over, I'm going to go to jail, and I'm going to die there, and I'm just going to drink my life, So I spent the next 9 months drinking my life away, and my dad hired the best lawyer he could find and tried to get me out of trouble. And so I decided after, I was in a relationship then, and I decided, you know what, it's time to focus on Michelle. So I ended that relationship and moved back home with my dad. At that point, my stepmother had divorced him, so it was just me and my dad and my daughter in his house. And he did a lot to help me with her. And it took them from May of 96 until May of 97 to even to get me to court, because I didn't go to court. And I didn't have to turn. I had ended up. They sent me to. All I heard was they sent me to, sentenced me to 15 years in state penitentiary, and I about fell apart. I'm like, what? I've never even gotten a ticket. Now you're telling me I'm going to jail? And so I stopped listening at that point, because I knew that that's what I was doing. I knew that that's where I was going, and that's what my life was going to be like. And they had the bailiff come over, and he put one cuff on me, and my lawyer was like, wait a minute, she has a child she has to take care of. And I thought, oh, kudos to you, that's going to go over real big. And he went up and talked to him for a minute, and they came back over and took the cuffs off, and they sent me home. And I'm like, how does that even happen? Well, they gave me a month to get my stuff together, and I had to turn myself in on August the 18th of 1997. And so in a little bit of time, I decided that I knew I was going to have, before I went to court, I knew that eventually I was going to have to go to jail. So in February of 1997, I stopped drinking. And my dad's like, do you think you need to go to a meeting? And I'm like, I thought about it for a second. I thought, they're going to send me there anyway, so I'll just go on my terms. So my dad took me to my first AA meeting, and I just kind of sat there and listened to what people were saying. And it never dawned on me that that's what my life was going to look like. Sitting in that first meeting, I just thought, I'll go to a few meetings, it'll look good. When I go to court, they'll pat me on the back and they'll ship me off on my way, right? That's not what happened. And the judge said, I had to, not only did the judge say to me, because my alibi was, well, I didn't drink till after the accident. And the judge looked at me and he said, you're lying, and I know you're lying. And this is what's this is what's going to happen to you. And not only did I have to hear that from him, I had to hear it as I looked at the gentleman's wife and 2 kids right in front of me. And that right there was not an easy thing to do, because I know if the shoe was on the other foot, how I would be feeling. And so I just did the next thing I could. I did everything I could. I went to a lot of meetings. I had my daughter with me. 4 months into my sobriety, I met Herb. We started dating. My sponsor's like, whoa, no, you will not date anybody in the program for a year. Better yet, you're not dating for a year. And I said, lady, look, I'm a grown-ass woman. I'm going to do what I want to do. And she's like, I really wish you wouldn't. And I'm like, well, I'm going to date, and I'm going to date him. And she said, well, just don't make any major decisions for a year. Okay. So I celebrated my year February 2nd of 1998, and Herb and I got married in 98, February 14th. I waited a year. I did what she told me to do. So, and that's just celebrated our 26th wedding anniversary, so we can definitely say AA in household work. But anyway, I ended up, they sentenced me to, I found out later, because I stopped listening when they gave me that initial. I thought, holy crap, he's tough. And what they charged me with was leaving the scene of an accident, but they charged me with the felony because he passed away. And they sentenced me to first thing I had to do was go to the Women's State Penitentiary, and that's where they do all your diagnostic stuff and all of that. And I got a real eye-opener there, because I realized I was not in Kansas anymore. And I had a whole new life ahead of me, and I wasn't exactly sure where that was going to go. But what they ended up sentencing me to was a treatment facility in the penitentiary that was off that particular property. And I just thought, holy cow, I have been given the opportunity to learn about myself and to be able to make a horrible situation a little bit easier to handle. And so I took that treatment facility very, very seriously. They gave us, it wasn't just read a couple of pages here and let me hear what you, no. They gave us workbooks, and I don't know if I've never been in any other treatment facility other than that one. So I did what they told me to do. We had classes we had to go to, we had meetings we had to go to, we had all these different things, not to mention the fact that we were still in DOC, so we still had all that stuff that we had to deal with too. And I just took it serious, and it was 120-day shock treatment is what they sentenced me to, and I did it in that facility. And Christmas that year, I did Halloween in prison, I did Thanksgiving there, I did almost, my release date was not until right after Christmas. And the week before Christmas, the counselor calls, and usually when she calls your name, she yells from her office and it echoes down the hallway. And I heard my name, and I started going through I didn't do anything. I'm thinking, what did I do? What did I say? Did I leave something somewhere? And I went into her office, and she says, Michelle, how's life? And I'm like, it's okay. I'm learning. And she said, do you think you've learned what you needed to learn while you were here? And I said, well, I've definitely learned why I drank and how I ended up not just here, but here. I learned about myself, and I learned what I was hiding from and why I struggled so hard for people to just approve of me and to accept me, and why I drank. I drank to cover up any feeling of any kind. I didn't want to feel, I just wanted to do life and be left alone, kind of thing, as far as I don't know, I forgot where I was going with that already, but so she said, well, your release date's coming up. And I said, yeah. And it was a Friday. It was a Friday around lunchtime. We had just gotten back from lunch, and she said, Friday, how would you like to go home on Monday? And I went, are you serious? And so I was able to make some phone calls, and my parents came up and got me, and I was just ecstatic to get home. But I got to tell you, 120 days doesn't seem like a lot compared to, I'm sure people in here have probably done more than that and been fine. But when I came out, I had no idea how to live. I was like, what do I do now? You know, they told me when to eat, they told me when to shower, they told me when it was okay to go to the bathroom and when it's not. And I got home and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And my dad's like, you're at home, you can do whatever you want to do. And I was like, I think I'll go to a meeting. So I didn't have a driver's license for a year. And Herb and I went to a lot of meetings together. And we met a lot of people. And we were able to just live. We raised my oldest daughter, and we've had 2 kids together, and we raised our kids there. And then we moved here in 2004, and I was still doing meetings up until that point there, but we were also going to church. So I was getting my idea of a higher power mixed in with the steps and the traditions, and some of the friends that we've made just taught me how to live life, because I remember thinking, how do you barbecue without drinking? How do you go to a concert and not drink? And concerts were my thing. REO Speedwagon they're gods in my eyes, but I have seen them a lot of times and sober. I don't know that I ever saw them drunk, actually, now that I think about it, but I didn't know how to do life on life's terms. I had to be taught that, and that's what these rooms and everyone in them has offered me. We, like I said, started going to church, and I started getting my concept of my higher power and trying to fill that in. And then we moved to Branson, and this was where Herb was working here before he moved to St. Louis, where I'm from, and that's how we met. But we came back here because his parents are still here, So we came back, brought our kids to Branson, out of the St. Louis area, much better place to raise kids. And I didn't go to any meetings because I was like, I didn't know anybody, and the meetings aren't the same, and I just can't go. And it was, we started doing some other activities as far as different organizations and getting involved in there. And in December of 2016, we were at a charity event, and somebody came up to me and said, hey, Michelle, you want a drink? And I'm like, yeah, I think I do. It's been 20 years almost. I drank 2 months before I would have had my 20-year coin. And I went. I was back at it. And the first night that we drank, I told myself, after all that time, I got this. I know how to do it now. I can do it and not get in trouble and all that stuff, So I thought, well, I got this. And it wasn't too far into that first night. I don't know what kind of shots we were drinking. It doesn't even matter. What I know is that first night I drank a lot, and I did not get drunk. And I told Herb the next day, I'm like, I figured it out. And then the next time I drank, I think I drank 1 beer, and I almost couldn't walk. And so the ride began again. And it was the party, and at that time our kids were old enough, and our boy, he wasn't old enough, but those girls, boy, we partied. We had a big party at Mom and Dad's house, and it was probably heaven to them, but I look back on it now, and I had to do some work with them girls, because it was not the way my life should have gone. And when I came back to the program, I was like, oh my gosh, because what I was told all around that accident, what I was told from my sponsor was, you can make a living amends to him. And so that night when I drank, I thought, I can't even do that right. So that kept me going for a while, and it kept me thinking, you're just a failure. You can't do anything right. And I thought, screw it. I'm just going to live my life drunk. I'll die soon anyway, so what the hell? And I don't know. I just started thinking, once you, in the story about, coming to AA and then trying to drink again, and you think about all those faces and the ladies that were up here with me, my heart is so grateful for you girls. I really do love the ladies in this program because you saved me, and I've said this before, and back when I was much younger, it was like, the guys tell you, oh, you look so good, you look so great, and the girls say, get your head out of the gutter. They tell you what you need to hear, and not what you just want people to think about you. It's I don't know, I just know from having those almost 20 years of sobriety and throwing it away, the feeling that comes along with all of that, it was rough. It was harder than initially coming into the program because I knew what I should have been doing and I wasn't doing it. And so when I looked back at it and was like, how did this happen? How did I get here? Well, you got here because you stopped going to meetings, you stopped talking to people that were going to tell you you can't stop going to meetings. And I stopped doing all the things I knew I needed to be doing to stay sober. And I just knew I couldn't live that way. And so I came back to AA, started going to meetings. Herb and I both came back. We started going. I started getting serious with the steps. And when I came in 2016, I didn't actually stay sober that time, obviously, because my sobriety date's not till December of 20, but I watched people, and I watched Cindy for a long time, and I just kind of watched the ladies in the program to see what they were doing. How are you smiling? How are you doing these things? Because in my heart, I had nothing left to smile about. Obviously, my kids and my husband, I love them, but that wasn't, the hole inside me was not filled. It was the hole in the donut kind of thing was back again, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was eating me alive. So when I came back, I decided, look, I'm getting serious. And when I did my first round of steps with Cindy, there were things I shared with her that I didn't share with my first sponsor. Probably number 3 as to why I got drunk. Do not leave anything out. It was I just thought, well, what will they think of me? And by the time I got to that point, I didn't care what anybody else thought of me. I needed to be able to think good of myself and expect that good things will happen and good people will come around with me doing the things I know I needed to do, versus expecting to fill that hole with what everybody else said about me, because that was never going to get, it wasn't going to get there, and I had proved that it didn't. And so when I asked Cindy to sponsor me, she said, well, call me. We'll see where it goes. And I was like, is that a yes? What is that? And so I called her. Oh, call me tomorrow. And I did that for probably a month. And I finally said, hey, Cindy, does this mean you're my sponsor? I mean, is that what that means? Because so I was so grateful when she said yes, because I was like, okay, now what? How do I get back where I was? I'm ready. I just got to get rid of the crap that had filled my life back up. And I was able to work through some stuff with her, and it never ceases to amaze me that things continue to change, and I have to be willing to change with it, because my life is not always going to be peaches and cream. I have to be able to say to somebody, say to Cindy, say to Mary Kate or Nicole or anybody that I call, look, I'm feeling crazy. What do I do? And I know I'm going to get honest answers from the ladies in this program, and it's important that I know that, because in my experience in this program, it didn't matter what time of day that I called people. If I couldn't get somebody, it wasn't because they were going, oh shit, it's her again. It was because they were busy. Hello, life doesn't revolve around Michelle. And so I just keep trying. I don't think that it's about me and they aren't answering because it's me. People have lives and they were probably busy too. So I just keep trying. And when I say to people, when I give my phone number to people and I say to them, call me if you need something, I honest to goodness mean it. My phone is on a charger right next to my head every single night. And if that phone were to ring, I would pick it up, because that's what we do. If it's the middle of the night, it better be important, but I'll answer it. Anyway, so I am really grateful that I made it to Branson, because this community has saved me, because I know what it was like out there in the short amount of time that I was out there, and it wasn't pretty. People die of drug overdoses and alcoholism daily, and I don't want to be just another statistic. I have grandchildren and kids that I love very much, and I want to be able to spend my life enjoying that now, instead of wondering how the next drink's going to come about, where's the next party. And I don't know, I'm just really grateful that everybody is here. I now have, I have an uncle that's in the program who helped me get to where I was there, and my little sister, after many years of drugs and alcohol, she has made it here, and she's got more sobriety than I do now, so I'm pretty excited for her. But she's still a little on the crazy side, but I love her anyway. So anyway, Benji, thanks again for asking me to share. I love you all. Thanks for listening.